So let's talk about buying used cars, right? Because they cost a heck of a lot less than a new car, and you know what? An old car could be exactly what you need. If you just need something to get from point A to point B and you don't want to spend too much money, used car, it's a great thing to buy. It's definitely advantages. It's definitely disadvantages, right? So there's things to be careful about when you're buying a used car that you don't have to worry about too much about a new car, right? So you got to watch out for the condition, right? So if there's any damage, there's often accident reports. If there are any accidents on the car, even something like a minor collision that, they say there's no damage, but there could be frame damage, there could be hidden damage that isn't being reported or wasn't fixed. It's good to know these things. Okay? You should test drive it, for sure. This is true with every car, but used cars especially. You got to get a good handle on how it handles, right? Because there are very, very different kinds of used cars. Some of them are very almost new, well taken care of off of a lease. Maybe it's very well done, or it could be somebody's old beater, right? So you got to be looking out that the instruments are working properly, right? So yeah, it's got a nice radio system. Does it work? Right? It should. That doesn't mean that it does. You can't assume that. The condition of the tires. Right? If you're buying from a dealership, this isn't too bad because usually they'll have replaced it. But buying privately, you have they have no such obligation to do this for you. The mileage is huge, right? The higher this is, the more the car was used, the more wear and tear there is on a vehicle. Generally, a vehicle's lifespan is measured in its mileage, right? So look up the car, find out, how long is this vehicle supposed to last in terms of its mileage, how much is the lot on this vehicle, and then compare it to the mileage on the vehicle. Because if it's at like 10, 20, even 30,000 kilometers, that's great, that's fine, it should be fine. If you got like a 100,000 kilometer vehicle, you're starting to look at the end of that vehicle's lifespan depending on the make and model. So you want to be careful about what you're buying. I mean, if it's super cheap, maybe 100,000 is fine. Maybe it's only meant to last a few months to a year, depending on how much you're spending on it. But that's something that you need to be careful about, that you need to be aware of. And the last thing that I gotta get you to do, safety check. Okay, this isn't just, checking all the sides and mirrors. This is an actual service that you need to do to have the car insured, which means you need to make sure the car is safetied before you purchase it. Okay, because if you purchase a car and you're then told actually these things are wrong with it, the brakes need to be replaced, the headlights don't work properly, they need to be redone. Any number of things can cause a vehicle to fail safety, then those repairs are on you. You have to be aware of that. Okay, and it might be okay if it's a very cheap car and you can spend the money to do the repairs and it's still a good deal for you, absolutely. But you have to be aware of these things so that you can budget for those things. Right? Nothing worse than buying a $5,000 car and realizing it has another grand worth of repairs sitting underneath the hood. Okay? Especially if the brakes would need work. Oh, they're expensive. Okay? So let's talk a little bit about the math behind purchasing a vehicle used, and we'll talk a little bit about all the different fees that can come up. We're not going to have an expansive list because there are too many things that could come up for me to give you a full expansive list of what it could be. Okay, but we'll look at an example. Okay, so our example says Mary lives in Manitoba and is buying a car privately, so not from a dealer, for $7,550. Takes the car to a mechanic for diagnostic tests, which costs $35 with taxes in, so don't need to worry about taxes for that one. She must also pay for a $65 for a safety plus GST, right? Just GST on safeties. Past safety, the car needs 2 tires, which cost $160 plus taxes each. Was the total cost of the vehicle? I'm also just going to add here. I'm going to explain what this is in a moment. The book value of the car is $8,000. Okay, so the book value means how much is the car worth if you were to look it up based on its condition, make, and model. Okay, So that can be different from what the car is being sold for. This could be, a friend who's giving you a discount, or maybe it's just somebody who needs to move the car quickly. Okay, so that's our book value. We'll use that in just a moment. So let's go through a few steps to figure out, what is the total cost of this vehicle. So the first thing that we need to pay for, obviously, is the cost of the vehicle itself. So $7,550. Okay. Now we do, any diagnostic tests or any services that need to be done to the vehicle before we start. Okay, so that's the diagnostic test here of $35. Okay. Now we need to do the PST on the vehicle since it's a private sale. Okay, so taxes on the vehicle. Private sale means just PST. So just the PST. Now the PST is 7%, but here's the kicker. We don't do the PST on this price. We do the PST on the book value. Okay, so we find our 7%, right, because that's PST, of the book value, which gives us $560. So those are the taxes that are added. And so far we have the diagnostic and the price of the car. Okay, so 3 numbers we have got so far. Let's keep it going here. Okay, so let's do the next step here. Let's do a safety. The safety here. Okay, so we know the safety check was $65, but it has to include GST. So we do our 5% for GST times 1.05. Okay, so that will be, in this case, $68.25 or $68.25. Okay, and then the last bit here, we have some repairs to do, right? So I've separated this from the diagnostics because the diagnostics might have come before purchasing the actual vehicle. The repairs came after. They do the safety. They tell you, you need new tires. So we've got 2 tires at $160 each, plus tax. So taxes of 12%. So we multiply all that together. 2 tires at $160 with the taxes, and that'll give us $358.40 or $358.40. Okay, so now we have all these different costs that you got to pay for this vehicle. Just gonna box them all so we get them all. And all we got to do is find their sum. Okay, so we add them all up. And when you add them all up, you get 7,550 plus 35 plus 560 plus 68.25 plus 358.40 equals $8,571.65. Okay, so a little bit more than that 7,000 you initially looked at, because there's always some hidden costs with used vehicles that you must be aware of when you are purchasing one. Okay, so that's just an example. There's always different variations, but generally you're looking for what cost of the vehicle is there, what additional costs are there, what taxes are included in those costs, and if you have a book value, doing taxes on that book value rather than the regular price of the vehicle. Okay, so that's a basic rundown of how to do the math behind purchasing a used car.